on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So I want to start off today's video by saying that I am by no means a Ford guy. Honestly, there's only ever been one Ford that has caught my eye or that I could ever see myself buying, and of course that has to be the single short four-wheel drive trucks, just because they are a blast and I can see a whole bunch of uses where I could use that on a daily basis. Now, as far as the Mustangs go, for certain years here and there, I've always thought some of them were good looking, just could never see myself buying one. That didn't change today, but what did change today is my opinion on some of these new Ford Mustangs. So right now, we're on vacation down here in the great state of Florida, and they just happen to have Mustangs as an option when we were doing our rental car. And for a few bucks more, we could upgrade to a convertible GT. So of course, we had to go ahead and do that. Now this car has changed my mind in a whole bunch of different ways throughout using it this week, and I want to share those with you, just in case you guys have never experienced one of these Ford Mustangs, or if you're just not really a Ford guy, because honestly, it has changed my outlook on them quite a bit this week. So let's get through the intro and jump right into today's video. Now that we've gotten through the intro, as you guys can see here behind me, the test mule is a 2026 Mustang GT with the 5-liter. It is a premium convertible, and I have to say it's pretty roomy inside. But before we jump into the interior, let's talk about some of the specs that drew me to wanting to rent one of these cars so that I could experience it and make up my own mind if I like these new Mustangs or not. So right off the bat, it still has the naturally aspirated 5-liter Coyote, which produces right around 480 crank horsepower and 415 foot-pounds of torque. And in my opinion, for a naturally aspirated V8, it's one of the last good ones left. So really happy with the sound of this thing, the tone, and for being a stock exhaust, especially a rental car, when we first started this thing up, I was extremely impressed at how good it sounds. Now, Coyotes are known for not being the best sounding engine, but whatever Ford did with the factory exhaust on this thing, it is a very pleasant tone. So we were very pleasantly surprised when we started this thing up for the first time. Now, if we move on to the engine bay, some of the other cool features that this car offers is it is still using the 10R80 10-speed transmission, which you guys will see here in a little while when we make some pulls with this thing. It is a very fast responding 10-speed. Now, as you guys know, I personally own a Hellcat, and I have to say Ford outdid themselves with this 10-speed transmission. Personally, I prefer it over the 8HP 90. Now, the 8HP is also a great transmission. This is a topic for another story, but I do think that the 10R80 is a little bit ahead of it as far as how well it works, especially with a stock car, and it gives you the ability to build on it later and have an absolutely phenomenal street car that can also handle some power and shift quicker than you could ever think of. So as far as the drivetrain goes, it is a rear-wheel drive limited slip differential, and it is independent rear suspension, which you can definitely feel when you're out taking corners in this thing. It handles itself extremely well. Now, obviously here we do have the convertible option, which is going to be much heavier than your standard coupe. I believe they come in right around 4,000 pounds, which is pretty heavy. Now, the reason that the convertible is a little bit on the heavy side is because they do have to do chassis reinforcement. Since you don't have all that roof structure there to help reinforce it when you're putting power down, they need to reinforce it in other places. And then of course you've got all the mechanisms to lower the top and all of that. So it does get a little bit heavier than the coupe does. So as we take a quick look at this Coyote that's under the hood, I'm gonna run you guys through some of the specs that I know I always pay attention to when I'm looking at one of these modern muscle cars. So right off the bat, 0 to 60 mile per hour should be right around 4.0 to 4.3 seconds. Then quarter mile, it'll run approximately a 12.3 to a 12.7. Now obviously with this one being the convertible and being a little bit heavier, I would definitely err on the side of the higher number with this one. Now, as far as trap speed in the quarter mile, it looks like it should get around 115 to 118, which for a stock naturally aspirated 5-liter is actually pretty impressive. I'm sure that 10-speed transmission definitely helps it out quite a bit when it's going down the quarter mile. Now, some of the other cool features that this car has from the factory, even though it's just a GT, it's not a Shelby or any of those other higher end trims, it does still come equipped with multiple different modes. So obviously you've got normal, you've got sport, you've got track, and you have drag strip, which I think is absolutely awesome. Now, as you'll see a little bit later in the video, it does give us the ability to set ourselves a shift point with a little chime and everything, and it actually works surprisingly well. So I was really happy to find that out, and it's actually very useful if you want to use the paddle shifts. Now, as I had mentioned, this car is very capable from the factory, and these Coyotes, this one is a Gen 4, they respond extremely well to aftermarket modifications. So I believe Ford, you can still order this combination with a Whipple from the factory. And then of course, the aftermarket support for these cars is absolutely phenomenal. You can go to just about any speed shop or any speed shop's website and order yourselves up some parts to make this thing dang near 1,000 horsepower. So these are very capable cars from the factory. Now, personally, if I was ever gonna be buying one just based off of looks alone, I would be going with the two-door coupe or the hardtop. I'm not really a convertible guy. You guys can let me know down in the comments what you prefer, but since we're down here in the Sunshine State, we did decide to pick ourselves up a convertible so we could cruise around at night with the top down, and I have to say it has been a total blast. So now that we've gone over some of the specs with this thing, let's get it rolled outside. We'll hit a cold start, see how it sounds for a Coyote, take it for a ride, have some fun with it, and see how it handles. Then we'll come back here and cover some of the things I did like or didn't like about it after spending a week with it, and if I could ever see myself buying one of these. So let's go get this thing fired up and take it for a ride. Let's go ahead and hit this thing with a cold start, see how this Coyote sounds. So it's obviously pretty hot here in Florida right now, so it's not super cold, but we'll still call it a cold start. This thing actually sounds really good for a bone stock Coyote car. Sounds even better actually inside the car, surprisingly, but it really doesn't sound too bad. And I like the typical Mustang blinkers, how they're sequential. Let it warm up here for a second and we'll go take this thing for a ride. Then when she gets a little heat in her, she chills right out, but it still sounds really good for a stock car. I'm not sure if this one's equipped with the active exhaust, but we'll check it out when we put this thing in sport mode and really start getting after it and see if we can tell a change in the tone of the car. But for right now, sounds pretty dang good for a bone stock Mustang. Once it gets a little bit of heat in it, it almost sounds like it has a little ghost cam going on. It sounds really, really good for a factory car. But as you guys know, this thing is a rental, so it is beat up a little bit, but it's not in too bad a shape. This one has right around 3,000 miles on it. So let's go ahead, hop inside here, take a look around, and take this thing for a ride. So first thing we notice obviously is the big screens. So let's go ahead, hit the start button. We'll see the little Mustang welcome screen come on here. It'll ding at you for a second. Our phone's connected. As you guys can see on the main display, you got your RPMs over here on the left, speedo is on the right. Now, I do believe that there is a way to switch through different styles of gauges. We'll try to figure that out here in a little while. I haven't really messed with it too much. So as you guys know, this is a rental. We picked it up last night at like midnight, so we didn't get a whole lot of time to mess around with anything, except of course to find out how to get it into sport mode. So you've got an AFR gauge, vacuum, and then voltage. So as we scroll through, it does have the driver assists and all that stuff. We've got trips, economy, all the normal stuff. Another set of gauges here with your trans temp, cylinder head, oil, oil pressure, and intake air temp, which is pretty cool, especially down here in Florida with it being really hot. So we got through all those gauges. Then if we come over here to the main display itself, we've got all of your heat controls. But one thing I do like with Ford is that they put some of the buttons down here so that if you want to get to a certain screen, like let's use the sport mode stuff for example, you just hit the little pony, it'll pick up all of your auxiliary setups here. So we've got our auxiliary gauges, so we can toggle through all of these. I'm sure that we could change them too if we wanted to. So you've got some even more options right there. Then we've got some more things over here. So pretty cool little setup that they have here from the factory. I actually really enjoy having a bunch of gauges. Just makes the car feel a whole lot sportier. Now, talking about being sportier, it does seem to have some sort of carbon fiber. I'm not sure if it's actual exposed carbon or if it's more of like a carbon fibre, but either way, makes the car look really nice and gives it that nice sporty feel. Now, if we come over here to the sport pages, so you've got track apps. You can come down here, change all of your color stuff. You can do your cluster theme. So as you can see, we've got sport, track, you've got match drive modes, all kinds of cool stuff here. It's even got Fox body gauges, SVT Cobras. That's actually a really neat feature from Ford. I think it gives it kind of a nostalgic feel, even though you've got all of this new tech. So then if we come down here, we can do track. Changes your whole gauge layout here on the dash itself. And then I'm very curious to see what this classic Mustang looks like. So that's pretty cool. It changes to the old school style Ford gauges that everybody knows from those 60s era Mustangs. Then if we come down here to the Fox body, very similar, gives you the old school Fox body feel. So I actually think that's a really neat feature, especially for someone that's more of a Ford enthusiast. You could switch to something like this and feel like you're back in one of those cars. Now, they have the iconic white background for the SVT Cobras, because even if you're not a Ford guy, you know what the Cobra gauges look like, and they actually do a really good job of making it feel very similar to that car. So we're gonna go back up here. I like it in sport. It's just a good balance of an all-around cluster setup. So let's go ahead, drop this thing down into drive and go take it for a ride. So of course, being down here in Florida, we've got to go ahead and drop the top. So they make it super easy on this. You just flip this down, you turn it just like that, you'll see it pop. Then you hit this button here, it'll put all of our windows down for us. And then I believe you hit it one more time and it'll start putting the top back. All right, so we've got to hold it when it puts the top back. And then it'll leave your side windows down for us as we hear a little bit of thunder in the distance. Let's go ahead, drop this thing down into gear and go take it out on the road. So as you can see, it's got a really nice reverse screen here. Got plenty of field of view. You can see everything around you as well as our rear sensors. So we'll go ahead, back this thing out of the driveway. We do currently have it in normal mode. Does sound absolutely phenomenal for a factory car. You just see what the shift strategy is like as it is in normal mode here. Then once we get out of the neighborhood, we'll go ahead, drop this thing into sport and see how it does. Even burbles a little bit, it sounds like. Oh yeah, it does. Wow. As I'm sure you guys already know, I am not a Ford guy, even in the slightest, really. I've never really been a huge fan of Ford.
Take your next right onto Hartford Boulevard.
This thing, when Ford designed it and they did what they did with it, they hit this thing right on the head. I mean, they nailed it. This car is absolutely phenomenal. Interior-wise, it drives phenomenal, but it also has that sporty heritage. So let's go ahead, quiet down at that GPS real quick, and get this thing out on some open roads. That thing up for a second. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and drop this thing down into sport mode. We'll go full manual mode for a second. Of course, there's a mower. With that 10R80, it shifts like crazy. It's honestly very impressive how well this car shifts, but I can definitely see why so many people use this as a base. It is a great foundation for either a turbo kit or some sort of Whipple or something along those lines. So we'll go ahead and get the top hook back up here in a minute and we'll drive this thing around a whole bunch more. Sounds so impressively good for a stock car, guys. So we were just sitting here at Walmart messing around with this thing, and I found some pretty fun stuff to play with here. So we've got acceleration timer, brake performance, lap timer, and then we can do shift indicator. So we're gonna turn light mode on. I don't know if the tach's gonna flash at us. We'll turn the tone on too, just because. And let's see how high this thing goes. Goes right up to 7,200. Now, I've made a couple pulls on this thing, and it feels kind of like it starts to fall off after 6,000. It feels like it makes really good torque, then starts to taper off a little bit, but we'll set it at 72 and go from there with it. So we'll leave that set up for now. Not gonna really mess with the brake performance or the acceleration timer or anything yet, but we'll put this thing in sport mode, drive it around a little bit, and see how it does. The paddle shifts in this car are an absolute blast. Like I said before, the 10R80 in this car is so responsive. It's honestly unmatched in the modern market, in my personal opinion. Obviously, I'm a Hellcat owner, so I'm a little bit favorable to Dodge. But when Ford came out with this 10R80, they really just cleaned the floor with everybody else. So you really can't knock it for what it is, especially in a car like this, where it's just an absolute blast to drive. So we'll go ahead, keep driving this thing a little bit. I figured I'd show you guys some of this thing at night. The gauges are a blast. Right now we're driving a 67 Mustang. So super fun, a blast to play with, and it definitely handles just like you would expect a Ford Mustang GT to handle.
Continue on I-75 north for 34 miles.
Florida reversible expressways are very odd to us. Like, I've never been on something like this. It's kind of cool. Very interesting. Tested out that shift light dinger, and it does actually make a noise, and it actually gives you a little mark on the tachometer itself that will give you like a reference mark of where you have it set to shift at. And then when you creep up to it, I don't know if you guys could hear it on camera, but there was an audible little chime that went off. So I definitely think that's cool. I didn't know if the tach would like light up or something, but just the fact that you can set that is pretty fun. So the paddle shifts in this thing are phenomenal. I've said it a couple times already, but this 10R80 really knows how to put the power to the ground, especially in this roughly 450 to 500 horsepower NA Coyote. It runs really good, shifts phenomenal, and it's just honestly a blast to drive. So we'll keep driving this thing around a little bit, have some more fun with it, and go from there. Thing gets down pretty good. All right guys, so as you've seen, we've checked out the interior, we've taken this thing for a ride, and we filmed those clips all throughout the week while we've had this car, kind of just piecing it together and getting a feel for what it would be like to actually own one of these cars. Now, like I said, in my personal opinion, if I was picking one of these up, it wouldn't be a convertible, just because that's not the direction we usually go. We usually go more performance based, and I think it would be a better option for what we would want to do with one of these. But for a vacation car, being convertible, I think it relates just fine. I think this car performs perfectly fine as a convertible, and I think anything that we found about this car this week would heavily relate to if you decide to go out and buy a coupe. Now, like I said when we were driving this thing, I was very happy with all of the infotainment systems and the gauge displays. Now, one of my only complaints about the actual displays themselves is I wish I could customize the dash itself. So you can go through and pick all the different Mustangs like the Classics or the SVT Cobra, or just go with a more calm setup. But I wish that we could go in there, pick one, and then scroll through and set different gauges on either side, kind of like we can in our Cadillac that we have. Now, it does give you a whole bunch of options, but they're all in the center. So if you wanted to set up your own custom layout and show multiple things at once, it's not really ideal. Now, if you really wanted to, you can show the gauges on the center console display, more of the radio display, but then you're gonna lose some of your GPS features. So personally, I've actually been pretty happy with this screen setup, and I think it's a good fit for this car. It gives it a good bit of tech, but also keeps it feeling very simplistic and sporty. Now, as far as the center console goes, it leaves a little bit to be desired, but it is very roomy. It's a good armrest. You don't have a whole lot of room in that compartment, but with two full-grown adults in the car, we had plenty of room. My seat would go back as far as I need. It actually would go back so far that I can't touch the pedal, so there is plenty of room there. Now, as far as the back seat goes, that is a little bit on the tight side. If you guys seen in that little clip, I can barely fit my hand between that when I'm in a normal seating position. Now, if we needed to, one of us could scoot up plenty far to fit someone in the back. But if I was buying this car, it would be simply as a majority two-person car with the occasional third person behind the passenger. But again, this car being convertible does give you a little bit more room to move around because someone could stand up and climb back there, whatever the case. But as far as being a coupe, I think it would be more of a two-person car. So now to my thoughts. After having this car all week, how do I feel about it? So like I said at the beginning of the video, I am by no means a Ford guy. I've never really been a Ford guy. But I have to say that when they built this car, they knocked it out of the park, and they have truly convinced me that these are pretty sweet cars. Now, there's no denying that the Coyote is a phenomenal engine. We all know that they can make tons of power. You can slap some turbos on them, pro chargers, Whipples, and go out and have an absolute blast. And as long as you do the basic necessities, these things can be extremely reliable, so there's no arguing that. And then when you experience the 10-speed, if you guys haven't, I highly recommend either riding with someone or going out and renting one of these 10R80 cars, because that transmission completely transforms how this car handles. It shifts flawlessly, it does exactly what you tell it, when you tell it, and it is quick about it. So I've been very impressed with the transmission and the power delivery of this engine. They work extremely well together to keep the engine in its power band. Now, if you had a little bit of boost on top, this car would be an absolute riot, and I can totally see why so many people lean towards the Mustangs, especially in today's day and age where they're one of the few, if not the only V8 American muscle cars left. So I have to say they have changed my mind when it comes to the Fords. I actually really enjoyed this car and could see myself buying one in the future. Now, obviously, we would probably get one from Copart or something like that, build it back and make a whole bunch of power with it. But if you were in the market for a car that you can daily drive, get the kids to school, but also on the weekends go out and have a whole bunch of fun, I would definitely start looking with these Mustangs. This thing has been an absolute pleasure to drive, and it's just been all around fun. Now, as far as driving it all week, we went all the way up to the Tampa Aquarium, and we drove this thing a whole bunch. I'm not sure exactly how many miles on it, but probably close to 1,000 miles. And I have to say, I was pretty impressed with the fuel economy. So again, if you were gonna daily drive it, I got right around 18.5 to 19 miles per gallon, and that was mostly highway, but quite a bit of back roads, and we beat on it every chance we got. So it gets a pretty decent fuel mileage with this efficient Coyote. Now, that's one of the things I do like about these engines is they are very efficient, but they also lay down the power very nicely as well. So all the way around, I think this is a very nice combo, and especially down here in Florida, you could drive this car year-round without any worries and have an absolute blast doing it. The other thing I really like about it is there is a ton of room for customization. Now, you can find just about anything you want for the visual side of things. If you want to do a wide body kit, front lips, spoilers, all kinds of things. You can hop right online and order up whatever you'd like. As far as wheel options, there are a million wheel options out there that will perfectly fit this car. But my personal favorite thing is all of the performance aftermarket that supports this car. You can literally order just about anything you could ever want to do with this car right off the internet and have yourself an extremely reliable, super powerful, fun daily driver. So where does that leave us after spending a week with this car? Honestly, I have to say it has completely changed my outlook on how I looked at these cars. This thing has been an absolute blast. It gets good fuel mileage, makes good power. Anybody can hop behind the wheel and have a blast with it, and especially this one being a convertible definitely added to the fun bonus. So really happy with this car. Honestly, it completely changed my outlook on them. So if you guys haven't had the opportunity, I definitely recommend getting out there, rent one, drive your buddies, do something to get behind the wheel of one of these 10-speed Mustangs. It is an absolute joy to drive. Now, I would still love the opportunity to get behind the wheel of a single cab, short bed, 4-wheel drive, 10-speed F-150. I think that could be the pinnacle of a fun street car. Now, hopefully today's video could help you guys out in some way, shape, or form. Like I said, I went into this not being a Ford guy at all, but I'm leaving this video definitely considering trying to track one of these down on Copart to have our own fun with it. So as always, I appreciate you guys for checking out the channel. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, and check us out on all of our other social media platforms: Facebook, TikTok, and Bought to Build Official on Instagram. Also, just in case you haven't seen, we did decide to open up YouTube memberships. So if that's something that interests you, or you're just looking for a way to help support the channel, make sure to go and check that out. Every little bit helps. As always, I appreciate you guys for sticking around to the end, and we will catch you on the next one.